The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to RISmedia's webinar series, where today we're covering 8 simple steps to 10 times your business. And I know when you look at a headline or a heading or a title like that, you think, hey, that's just a bunch of baloney. But in reality, we have 2 panelists on who have nearly 10 times their business in the last 5 years. And everyone who's attending today's webinar is going to get the opportunity to learn directly from them. My name is Cleve Gaddis. I'm normally coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. I happen to be in Washington, D.C. today. I'm going to spend some time at the Knoerr mid-year meeting. But for those who wonder, well, who is this guy and what is he doing moderating a webinar, trying to give us good information? Well, in reality, I do exactly what you do on a daily basis. I run a team in Atlanta, Georgia. There are 6 or 7 team members. My team will sell a couple hundred houses this year. I spend about 35 or 40% of my time in the real estate business. I love it. I live, eat, and breathe and sleep real estate. And so hopefully I can help you guys get a different perspective, or at least learn from the panelists on today's call. That is certainly my hope. If you are interested in asking any questions, all of you have your go-to webinar control panel that gives you the opportunity to ask questions. I will always try to do my very, very, very best to monitor the questions myself. If they're content-related questions, I'll be monitoring those, and I'll try my best to get an answer from either myself or our sponsor or either of the panelists during the call. So you make sure you go ahead and put your questions into the go-to webinar control panel, and we'll be happy to get those answered for you the best we can. If you have any administrative type questions, you have technical difficulties or something like that, we have got people on the ground at RISmedia who will be helping answer those questions. They'll monitor those and answer those questions the best they can. Make sure you stay on all the way through the end of the webinar. We'll give you an opportunity to download some free gifts that will pertain to the discussion we have today with our panelists. We're going to give you some scripts and agendas and outlines for daily huddles, business plan workbooks, copies of the ABCs of lead management, which we'll talk about, and also a great onboarding program for buyer's agents. So make sure you stay tuned, and we'll give you access to all that toward the end. Again, this is entitled 8 Simple Steps to 10 Times the Business in 5 years. And to me, the most impressive part is not that just people can do 10 times the business today they were doing several years ago. It's that they can do all of that in a 5-year period. And we exaggerated just a little bit. They're not exactly 10 times the business in 5 years, but it is so close, it'll fascinate you. I will tell you that if I were in your shoes and I was a newer agent, maybe less experienced agent, and I was just trying to get to, 15 or 20 or 30 closings a year, maybe I'm doing 7 or 8 or 9 now, I would be thinking maybe this message doesn't pertain to me, but in reality it does, because the systems, in my opinion, that make people very successful in real estate are all typically very simple, and they're pretty much universal, meaning those that are successful out there tend to do the basics better than those who are not successful. A big shout out goes to Homes.com. I appreciate Homes.com sponsoring today's webinar. If it weren't for sponsors like Homes.com, we wouldn't be able to do this and bring these type of panelists and put on these types of programs to help educate real estate agents throughout the country. And we've got Tim Rabara. He's on as a guest from Homes.com. But Tim, if you don't mind, I'm just going to tell everybody the truth. You're a lot more than just a guest and a sponsor. You are heavily involved in online lead generation and conversion. So welcome, first of all, Tim. And secondly, if you don't mind, I might be calling on you with some questions during the webinar as well, if that would be okay.
Yeah, Cleve. Hey, well, thanks for having me, and thank you, everybody. And yes, I'm excited to talk a little bit about today. And yeah, when it comes to capturing your online leads, I definitely would love to speak about it. I'm excited for today's show with Samantha and Joelle as well. So it's going to be a great time to talk and discuss how we're going to generate more leads online. And I'm also excited, Cleve, to tell everybody about our brand new Homes.com. We just updated our site, making it very simple for the consumer to search for their next home. I'm going to tell you more about it here in just a few moments.
Perfect. Before we get into that, let me just answer a quick question. I know it was already answered for you, John, but the question was, will we have access to recorded version after the seminar, or do we need to take notes now? And the answer is you will have access to the full video, including the audio of the entire presentation. RIS Media will be sending that out. And if you don't already, you probably should subscribe to RIS Media's YouTube channel. That's how I get access to the content when I don't have time to be on one of the calls, and I never miss listening to one of the monthly calls, even if I'm not able to be there. Hey, Tim, let's go ahead and jump in if we can. I've been a Homes.com user for quite some time, and I'll be honest with you, when I saw these slides, I didn't know what any of these slides were about, so I'm guessing you have launched some new and looks to me to be some pretty exciting stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about what Homes.com has had going on recently?
Well, here's what's going on, Cleve. We just revolutionized our website, making it very simple for the consumer to search for their next home. You can see it right here in front of you. It's something that's personalized. When you log into Homes.com, what consumers are doing today is they want to visualize their next home. So as you can see, as part of our search option here is I like to buy a 4-bedroom home in Norfolk, Virginia, making it personal for the consumer to search through our website. And I tell you what, we took a leap in terms of revolutionizing this site. We've got some great new features in terms of search options where they can drive by a neighborhood, take a picture of the desired home that they love to have, and we would match them up with up to 20 to 25 homes that would match their criteria as they're doing a drive-through wherever neighborhood. So they could be out in Georgia, they could be out in Florida, they could be out in maybe New York looking for a second home, a vacation home, or their first home. All they got to do, Cleve, is take a picture of it, and guess what Homes.com is going to do? They're going to match them up with the home that meets their criteria, that's closest to their criteria, and they're going to go ahead and go from there and contact the real estate agent. Very, very simple to use, very consumer-driven, consumer-focused, and I'm excited about this because Homes.com is now simple, smarter, and making it easier for the consumer to search for their next home.
So I thought it was interesting that the search page here, I'd like to buy a blank bedroom home and blank for around blank, it's sort of a conversational approach to lead conversion. And when I first saw the slide, I thought, man, I would be a lot more likely to fill something like that out than I would on typical sites. And I know you probably can go into some additional details, but let's talk about this city sponsor. I don't know anything about this, but it looks interesting.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, you got everybody that's on this phone call today. I mean, really what we want to do is we want to dominate. We want to sponsor a whole entire city, especially when we're marketing ourselves or branding ourselves or listings, and we want to be the go-to agent. Well, City Sponsor is going to give you that spot on Homes.com. As they are, as a consumer is doing their search, as they're having their experience looking for an agent. Well, the third spot here, which is our city sponsorship, is going to allow the agent or the broker or the office to be visible and seen at all times during the search while the consumer is looking or maybe perhaps looking for someone to list with. So the city sponsorship gives the opportunity to someone to just buy out a whole entire area and brand themselves as the local expert, the #1 expert that is in terms of their location. And city sponsor is really, really good because on mobile devices, desktop, they are going to be the branded agent. They are going to be the one that's going to be seen online. And I look at it this way, Cleve, when you talk about online lead generation, there's a 3-step process for me. There's an engagement process where your online presence got to be continuously in front of them. And then as an agent, you got to educate maybe the first-time home buyer or someone that's looking for their next property. And of course, my third step in this process is to engage with them. And this is where City Sponsor allows them to engage with the consumer and to be that agent that's always in front of them at all times. So this is a great, great opportunity to be branded.
And so the difference is the Kelly Stewart person that I'm looking at here, because she's the only one who's actually she's the only person. I mean, that's the city sponsorship, so she's showing up differently because of her level of sponsorship. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. She's dominating her whole location. So if we're dominating Atlanta, Los Angeles, San Diego, it could be a small town that you're prospecting or you want to dominate in. That's what city sponsorship's all about.
So, guys, I do business in Atlanta, so don't anybody else dominate Atlanta. So just hold on.
There you go. I've got it on hold for you, Cleve.
Do all the other ones. Thank you. Okay. So talk to us about anything else here. Or does that cover everything for the
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's sold at the city level. It's going to pop up as an ad, as you can see, Kelly Stewart here. And then all of the listings would generate. And what's cool is that it automatically circulates for the consumer, so they don't have to click through it. It actually, because of the technology and the platform of the new Homes.com, the pictures will rotate, the listings will rotate, and of course Kelly's or whoever's agent's or broker's name is visible will always rotate in. So this is a great space for someone who wants to generate more listings or has listings to sell. A great space if you want to, again, be the sponsor of that city. This is a great opportunity to be branded there.
Great. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on into the meat of the presentation today. We've got two great panelists. Tim, I'm going to invite you back in to answer some questions and make some
anytime,
comments as
please.
we move forward. But I am really honored to have Joel Roberts on with us. Joel and I do business in the same market. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for Joel. When we were doing a lot of short sales from 2008 to 2012, Joel would always show up, and he was always selling our listings. And toward the 2012, 2013 time frame, Joel called and said, "Hey, can I come over and pick your brain a little bit about teams?" And he's just a fine person through and through, who has grown from about Atlanta Realty. He's developed and sold more than 1,100 homes, totaling about $500 million, excuse me. He's got 18 years of experience in real estate, specializes in first-time home buyers, investors, sellers, and single-family homes. Joel, thank you very much for taking time to participate in today's webinar.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate you thinking of me, and just appreciate your mentoring me over the years. You definitely motivated me just to see what you were doing, and helped push me to that next level.
Well, thank you, but you deserve all the credit. Hey, let's start out and tell us a little bit about, describe your business for us 5 years ago. What was your business like in 2013?
So in 2013, we were just coming out of the recession. Basically, I had hunkered down, trying to survive the recession, did work with a lot of buyers, tried to become the foreclosure expert. And so we were just coming out of that, starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel, and I was starting to get busy. But up to that point, I had pretty much, tried to do everything myself. And, so I was running myself ragged, trying to close, let's say, 25, 30 deals a year.
And is that about what you closed in 2013, 25,
Yep.
30? I know you were probably in the 200,000 range in terms of gross commission income, which,
Yep.
by the way, is not a bad year. I love that someone's doing 200,000 and they wind up wanting to do a lot more. It's pretty cool when you think about it. So talk about 2017. Talk about 2017, 2018. Describe your business now. Tell everybody about your business now.
Yeah. So last year, I've started a team a couple years ago. Last year, we closed 170 transactions, just under 2 million GCI. This year, the goal is 200 transactions, and I'd like to do 2.2 million GCI.
That's amazing. You talk about that like those numbers are not very big, and I'm sure a lot of folks on the call today are thinking, "Oh my gosh, I can't imagine having a business that would do somewhere in the $2 million range." So why did you want to grow a team? Why did you want to grow a bigger business? Was it because your ego was so large that you had to do gross commission income high enough to satisfy? You needed it to pay for the billboards? I know, by the way, neither of those are the case. But why did you want to grow a big team?
I think there's just something inside of me. There's a little fire in the belly that, always wants to get to the next level. So even when I talk about 200 units this year, I'm thinking, how can I get to 500 units? So maybe that's why it comes across as not that big of a deal. I know it's a huge, it's a huge number from where I came from, but there's just, there's just something inside of me that it would always like to get to that next level. And
once you learn the keys to growing, to 50 or 75 or 100 or 150 or 200, those same systems are what puts you in a position where you can continue to grow the business. So for people like you, it isn't really that big of a deal. It's huge because you actually get to keep all of the money that you make, or I assume you do anyway. I guess I'd have to call your wife and ask her how that works. But I mean, ultimately, if you can do 200, you can do 500. It's kind of cool to think about.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a matter of tweaking the system, going after business that, as a single agent, I was just way too busy to concentrate on. I'd hear great ideas and be like, man, I really need to do that. But, without the help that, the business has provided in terms of being able to hire help, I wasn't able to pursue that business. So now, I have the opportunity to pursue, all the great ideas that I learned, but was never able to implement.
So tell everybody, how many agents are on your team, including you? And you might have already mentioned this. Sorry if I missed it.
Yeah, no problem. There's 6 agents and me, so 7 altogether agents in my group.
And then how many administrative support people who actually help with paperwork, help with listings, help process closings, those type of people? How many administrative staff people?
Yeah, so I've got a lead ISA. I've got 2 ISAs under her, and then I've got a lead contract to close person and 2 assistants under her.
Okay, so a total of 3 administrative staff helping move the paperwork and get stuff done through the system, and then 2 people who are helping you on the front end from a lead generation and really more from a lead conversion standpoint, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so 2 full-time ISAs that are just on the phone all day long, and then kind of a lead ISA person. She's helping convert, assign the leads, kind of bigger picture type things.
So when you have people working for you, I assume your people from an administrative standpoint helping you with the closing process and the listing. I assume those are salaried people. Maybe they get a small bonus for every closing. But how do you compensate your ISAs? Is it a base salary? Is it on a per appointment basis? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a combination. So they get a base hourly rate, and then they get a bonus for every appointment that they're able to set.
And then, so how do they know? Because I assume that probably scares a lot of people on the call, think, oh my God, I can't imagine having people I'm paying a salary plus a bonus for appointments. But how does it work? I mean, do they wind up covering their cost? I mean, are they producing a good amount of business? I mean, how's it working?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's amazing, and it's getting better every day. I mean, I really just started this program the end of last year with the ISAs, so we're fine-tuning it every day. I just got a $1.2 million listing off of some of the circle prospecting that they were doing last week. So yeah, it's going to more than pay for itself.
So got a question from Nikki asking, do the ISAs need to be licensed realtors? And I think the laws vary from state to state, but in most cases, the ISAs, if they're giving advice and scheduling appointments, they do need to be licensed realtors. My suggestion, Nikki, would be you reach out to your broker to find out exactly how the laws work in your specific area. Hey, so when you were growing the business on the buyer side, and Joel, it's my understanding that you decided to sort of double down on the buyer side of the business. And normally people would say, okay, I'm good on the buyer side, let me develop some seller side business. But how did you make the transition from being an individual agent working by yourself to starting to grow a team and just focus on the buyer side? Talk to us about that transition. And that was in 2013, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a little different when it comes to working with buyers. A lot of people, don't like buyers. They don't like setting up the appointments, driving all over town, that type of thing. But I started my career selling new homes. Yeah.
Hey Joel, so I have I drive a Lexus, and I have specially programmed locks in my car where they won't even unlock if a buyer wants to get in the car with me. So there are definitely some people who, now, and by the way, I love buyers. I just don't love the whole process. So to me, how you set up and automated that system is just fascinating, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, so it's just like anything, if you, like you said, create a system, get it down to where it becomes easier, then it's not such a big grind. If you have someone to set up those appointments for you, you have someone, to take in what listings the buyers want to see, and all you do is show up to that appointment, then it takes a lot of the sting out of it.
So you would literally, so a lead would come in and you would make the first contact. You would turn them over to a virtual assistant. So it's my understanding you didn't hire a full-time employee to work for you in the first place. You just hired a VA. Is that right?
That's right. That's how I started off. I was trying to do all this on my own, and then that was the first step, was to get a virtual assistant. And the first thing I had her do was just set up the appointments for me. So she would literally, you know, take in what homes that particular person wanted to go see. She would set up all the appointments. She would send me the reports that I want straight to my iPad through Dropbox. She would even set up, you know, in Google Maps and send them to either my car or to my iPad where I was going. So literally I had all the information that I needed at my fingertips to look like I was, you know, an expert and had spent a lot of time creating, you know, the reports and getting to know the homes that the people wanted to see. All I literally had to do is show up, open the door, and, you know, go from there. Now, of course, it took years of experience in terms of learning how to sell and, you know, help people narrow down their decision. So I'm not, you know, spending 3 years showing them, you know, 200 houses. But, you know, it just made the whole process much simpler.
And so when you would show up to show buyers homes, you had 5 or 6 homes to show them. I mean, in reality, you hadn't spent any time preparing for anything other than, I'm meeting, you know, my first buyer today at 10 o'clock. I'm meeting my second buyer at 2 o'clock. And so when you got to the appointment, you would pull up all of the information on your iPad from Dropbox, and it would seem like you had spent the last week preparing to meet with these clients, even though in reality you had to look up their names just to make sure you remembered who they were. Is that right?
Exactly right.
I mean,
yeah. I mean, like, literally all I do, even today, is, you know, my ISA will say, hey, I set an appointment for you. It's on your calendar. You know, I'll look up in Dropbox where I need to go, click it on my Google Maps, you know, put the address in, show up, you know, I'll try and get there, you know, 5 or 10 minutes early. And, you know, even if I'm meeting a new client for the very first time, you know, it looks like, you know, I've studied this house and, you know, spent an hour getting ready for this appointment, which before I had the help, that's what it was, you know, and that's why I think for a lot of people, it feels like such a grind working with buyers.
It does. It can just totally wear you out. But I think it's interesting that you wanted to shift so that you had everything you needed in order to appear as an expert about that listing. Because in a lot of cases, when people are trying to up their, you know, the number of closings they're achieving, they really just want the commission for the closings. But you had to sort of mentally make a shift, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But you would take with you the full listing report just as a recap, the listing history, the aerial view, including the property lines, and he would have all of that together. So when he was walking the property, the people would consider him to be an expert. I think that's fascinating. And what's interesting to me is that you set up a scenario where you could probably work with 3 or 4 times as many buyers over the period of a week as you could if you had to do all the preparation on your own. Would you agree with that number, or am I off base?
Oh, no, I would say I probably, you know, could work with 5 times the amount of buyers as I was able to prior, you know, to hiring that virtual assistant.
So when you, in the past, before you started to make the shift to growing a team, I know you would have an opportunity to show a buyer a home, and your goal was to go out there and sell the buyer that home. And you had to go through and make a mental shift where you went from, I'm trying to sell a home, to really being a trusted advisor. And talk to us about how you made that mental shift, and what difference did it make in the way the buyers reacted to you once you, I've got a good friend named Julie Timms in Hilton Head, and she says some agents have commission breath. So you had to switch away from having commission breath to let me help you, let me give you good advice. Talk to us about that transition.
Yeah, so I think that's a big difference. You know, if you want to gain buyer business, you know, most buyers have told me, you know, that the other agents, they showed up, you know, they wanted them to buy that house, and, you know, they felt pressure, and that was it. And I've heard a lot of people say, you know, God, I showed them this house, or I showed them 2 houses, and they didn't want to, you know, they didn't buy any of them. And so I've kind of switched that around to where, you know, I show up on low pressure, I've got the information for them, and I want to add value to the process. And pretty much I've found over the years that people really don't care about me. They don't care, you know, that I've sold, you know, however many homes over my career. You know, all they care about is getting a good property if they're a buyer. And so if you can add value to that process, then the chances are pretty good that they'll work with you, and you can make a great commission and a great living off of that.
What a novel concept. If you can show them that you have their best interest at heart, they might be interested in putting you in a position to get a commission when they purchase a house. It's pretty simple when you think about it, but it's so true. We got a question from Karen. Says you started to speak about your career in new construction. She believes she wanted you to elaborate on your roots in new construction, your path forward. But what I would specifically like you to talk about is how your experience in new construction helps you become more of that trusted expert advisor.
Yeah, so straight out of college, I went to work for Pulte Homes, and they really taught me the sales process. And I think that's, one thing Cleve and I have talked about. There's not a ton of people out there that will teach you the sales process. There's a lot of information on how to grow your business, how to run your business, but, how do you actually take a person from, meeting them from the first time, they don't know who you are, they may even think you're the listing agent if you're working with buyers, to trusting you and being able to close the deal. And that's what I learned in new construction. And the great thing is that I had a model home for people to come to. So it was a great way for me to start off my career. And that's why I love open houses. I tell people on my team all the time, an open house is just a model home. It's like a new construction model home. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to build these model homes, and it's just so that, not only can you see the product, but, they stick someone in there that can then create a relationship with you and keep up with you. So I also love open houses. But getting back to my roots, started off in new construction, did really well with Pulte, went into sales management, actually went out on my own, built about 200 homes from 03 to 08, and then, of course, everything imploded in 08, and all I knew was real estate, so I got my license in 09, and then basically have been figuring things out since then.
Hey, Tim, let me get you to jump in here. How do you think every agent's ability to convert leads would be different or improved if everybody had that I want to be a trusted advisor, not a salesperson mentality?
Well, I think it has to deal, if they're, when it comes to the consumer and they're searching and they're doing, let's say, an online search for the agent or, the broker, whoever they want to work with, I think there's got to be some type of reviews. There's got to be some type of online presence. There's got to be some type of trust established as they're doing research. So that way, as they're getting advice or they're getting educated on this, then it gives them that trust factor. And I think that's where a lot of the conversion comes in, when that trust is built, whether it's through your online reputation, whether it's your reviews, whether you're doing some online marketing, whatever the case may be. But that's how I see it as when it comes to getting that trust online.
And, Tim, I'd like to take it even one step further. I agree with you 1,000%. Those are the fundamentals that are going to make everybody successful. But a lot of people have a hard time converting these online leads because really they're just looking for another sale. Mm-hmm. And Joel turned it around to where he was looking to find opportunities to help people. And I don't know about you, Tim, but when I'm dealing with somebody online or over the phone or via email, I can tell whether or not they're just looking for my money or they're looking to help me.
Right.
And that's a big, big difference. Okay, hey, Joel, so you started adding agents, and you had them set up on a CRM, and you had a very specific way that you assigned leads to them. And so I want you to talk about how you assigned leads to agents, and then also the importance of how you didn't let the agents go over 50 leads in their pipeline at any time, because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, so, as I grew my business, I just continued to invest in my business. So, that's one thing I would see agents get, all set up and have all these systems in place to have this great business, but they weren't really investing in their business to generate, more clients. And so my marketing budget, I'm continually pumping money into that. Right now, I'm between 20 and 25% of my income goes straight back into marketing. So as I was, building my business, building my online presence, and doing a lot of lead generation and pulling in these leads in, I just, naturally got to the point where I couldn't handle it anymore. And so then I'm letting, leads go, business go, because I can only do so much as one person. And I got to the point where I closed 88 deals, the vast majority of which were buyers in 2015. And I said, okay, I've got to I've got to build a team here. You know, I've got to, you know, get a little bit of quality of life back. And by the way, I'm flushing leads down the toilet, money that I'm spending, and I'm only, you know, kind of gathering the low-hanging fruit. So I started the team in 2016.
And so you mentioned I'm spending 25%, but I mean, you started spending a small amount of money and then you increased it. And then, I mean, you didn't like start out by spending $10,000 or $20,000 a month. You kind of eased into it, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I didn't have that amount of money right off the bat, but, you know, once I started building my business enough to pay my bills, then instead of increasing my lifestyle, I first increased my budget, you know, my marketing budget, and pumped it into the business, and you know, started off probably about 10%, then went to 15, then 20, you know, and right now I'm hovering between 20 and 25% of my business pumped right back into it.
I love that. The concept of delayed gratification, I think we could all learn from that. I'll invest in myself and my business first, and then I'll reap the rewards and you know, spend lavishly. Although last time we did talk, you were driving a Corvette, so you must have spent some of the money somewhere, sometime.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got to the point where, yeah, I can afford a few nice things in life. But at any rate, you had asked about, you know, how do I divvy out these leads? So yeah. I got to the point where it's like, okay, I've got you know, all this additional business. I've got to get help. So basically what I did is I kind of geographically picked relationships with agents that I felt, you know, would be a good match on my team. And then, you know, just started sending them all the additional business that I couldn't get to. And eventually I saw, you know, hey, they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. You know, I'm continuing to pump money into the business. They're getting all these leads. So they're just picking the low-hanging fruit. And, you know, they're probably also letting some business go by, if not a lot of business go by them, because, you know, they get to a maximum point where, you know, there's only so much time in the day. So then I decided, look, I need to revamp this. And plus, you know, they weren't super happy. You know, getting a buyer's agent to, you know, follow up, spend 1 or 2 hours a day lead generating is tough. So I kind of flipped everything on its head, and I said, okay, I want to stop, you know, trusting that my agents are going to lead generate and going to convert business like I convert business. So instead of worrying about them doing that, I want them to concentrate on concierge service for their clients. So what we've gone to is, you know, with the ISAs and the whole system that we've set up, is we're the ones that are, you know, continually nurturing leads and trying to generate appointments, to where, you know, our goal is to just give our buyer's agents appointments, not just leads. And so what we do is we say, look, we don't want you to have more than 50 to 100 leads in your database at any given time. And really, these aren't leads, these are METs. These are people that you've gone out, you know, after about 6 months or so, these are people that you've gone out, you've actually met with. And I want you to just concentrate on giving them concierge service. So instead of you calling, you know, an hour a day, a bunch of numbers that people don't pick up, I want you to go take some video of some properties and send them to everyone that's looking in, you know, a particular neighborhood or a particular community. And, you know, that's my goal, because I feel like they can convert a lot more business that way than me continually pumping, you know, more leads at them that they, you know, probably won't have time to convert anyway. So we're definitely getting a lot better at that, and we're seeing a lot more appointments set.
I love that you're setting expectations up front, you're creating accountability, and you're putting systems in place that drive the results you're looking for. And that's one of the things that a lot of us who are trying to build a team have a hard time with, is putting the right systems in place and setting that accountability and the right expectations. I know you came up with a unique selling proposition, or what you used to convince people that you were going to be the best person for them to work with. So let's close out your segment and talk just a little bit about that.
Okay, so yeah, like I said, I think there's, you know, definitely we have to insert ourselves into the process, and the way that we do that is by creating value for a client. So we've got a whole, you know, list of things that we do for buyers and sellers, you know, that we try and think about maybe they're not going to get somewhere else. So for buyers, we have several and I'm not sure which one you're referring to, Cleve, but we have several things that we do for them. First of all, we've got the ISAs. So if they're looking in a really specific area, like a certain neighborhood, we will call every single person that we can get the data on, and it's amazing how much data is out there that you can purchase, and we'll call every person in that neighborhood for them. So who else is doing that? A single agent surely, doesn't have the time to really do that. And we can do that, on a continual basis every single day. So that's the first thing that we do. Another thing that we do is we give them exclusive access to, all of our listings and that type of thing first. And, we've got a huge network of agents that we've developed relationships to try and find listings for people before they show up online. So that's another big thing that we do. And then probably the most successful thing that we've done is we've teamed up with a lender, and hearkening back to my, construction days, we have created a program where if you use our team, our lender partner will pay up to 1% of your closing cost. So that's been a great tool for us to be able to say, hey, look, we're still going to get you a great interest rate through our lender partner, and they're going to pay 1% of your closing cost. And, that pays huge dividends on the buyer side, but then also the listing side. So we'll do that for our sellers as well. And we'll say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you hire us to list your home, we will pay your buyer's closing cost up to 1%. And when I say we, I mean our team, which includes our lender partner. The money is really coming from our lender partner. And on top of, getting your buyers a great interest rate and paying your closing costs, potentially saving you thousands of dollars, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're able to keep tabs on what's really going on during the process. And really, that's the whole reason a builder does that program as well, because they want to know if there's going to be a problem with that loan as soon as possible.
Absolutely. So just to summarize, you're giving them extra access, advanced access, exclusivity. They're going to learn about listings when they're working with your team that they won't learn about other places, and you have the ability to save them some money. Joel, thank you so much for being so honest and just forthcoming and pouring out information. I know that of the attendees we have today, that many have gotten some good stuff out of what you have shared. Let's move on to Samantha. This is Samantha Knoerr. She is Chief Operations Officer of the Christy Buck Team with Infinity Real Estate Group in Houston, Texas. She oversees every aspect of the team, including customer service, education. She's a realtor and been around Christy and her team for 11 years. But even more importantly, Samantha is going to come at this from an operations standpoint. I've known Samantha now for 4 or 5 years. I consider her a good friend. And what's amazing to me is to watch her develop and grow as the team grows. So, Samantha, I'm very proud to have you on as a panelist on today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Cleve. I'm very excited to be here, and I look forward to going over all of this with all of you.
Well, cool. Tell us how your business was. Describe your business for us in 2012.
Oh, gosh. So in 2012, it was just Christy and myself. We were doing about $250,000 in gross commission income and about 50 units, and we were both literally working 24/7. Texting each other middle of the night. Did you do this? Did you do that? We had no systems, no CRM, no process. We were doing well. We ranked, top 5 in our company still, but we were kind of capped out max at that 50 unit.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that Christy would go to awards banquets and she'd want to get up and on the stage in the fancy dresses, and so she wanted to have a more balanced life where she could spend more time with her kids and wear a fancy dress once a year to the awards banquet. Am I right?
We did, yes. We were working so much, and we were just like, we see these people up on stage that were doing, $1 million, $2 million a year, and we were like, God, what are we doing wrong? Where's that missing link so that we can get up there? Why can't we be up there? And so at that point is when we hired our business coach.
Talk to us about the business today.
Yeah, so the business today, actually in 2017, we finished with about 325 units, and we did over 2.2 million in sale volume. And actually 2018, currently, we're at about 120 transactions closed, and, at least 50, 60 average consistently and pending. We've grown our team to, there's 19 of us now. We went from Christy not wanting to have a single, buyer agent on the team to we have 9 of them over there now and still looking for more. And we've created, several divisions within our company. Christy and I, for the most part, we don't work evenings. We don't work weekends now. We have life balance. And we've created this really well-oiled machine with all of the rest of our team members here.
And so as people probably got from Joel's portion of the presentation, there's no magic pills. I mean, nobody climbs up the beanstalk and comes back down with the magic bean to grow a successful team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would you agree with that it's just sort of mastering the basics that's made all the difference in your business?
I completely agree. People will ask us, well, what did you do? Is that quick fix? And we tell them we didn't do anything earth-shattering, nothing, amazing rocket science out there. It's just, we took these simple steps and put in the work that so many aren't willing to stop and time block to do.
And what's interesting is as your team has grown, and I've had the ability and have some extra access to you to watch how the team interacts. I mean, your team still has just as many problems getting along as a team as a crappy team does. But it's amazing to watch the way you've learned to deal with one another and support each other's strengths and help each other with weaknesses and all of that kind of stuff. How important is that in the overall success of your team's business?
That's huge, honestly, and I know we're going to cover that probably just a little bit later, a little more detail, but I mean, that's a necessity. We look at, if our team's going to bring us a problem now or a challenge, as we call it, we tell them you've got to come with a solution. Don't just come at me with 5 problems. We want you to think, we want you to help us develop a strategy to fix it, because we are a team of, 18, and we're primarily women, so we definitely have our struggles. None of us are perfect, but it's not that we made a mistake, it's how can we fix it and do better next time.
I love that. And I know something that's very important to you and your team, and you spend a lot of time on it, is how you plan for success each year. And it's my understanding you start in like September of the prior year planning for the current year. And so talk to us a little bit about what you do from a business planning standpoint.
We do. So about every September, October, every single agent on our team, they have to do what we call the business plan workbook. You'll see on the screen. And, the keys to the business, to building that business plan is, they start out with, we want to identify their mission statement. We want to identify what each agent's strengths and weaknesses are. And it's not so that we can just beat them down on those weaknesses. It's because we are a team, and let's help them where they are weak, and let's, really praise them and build them up on those strengths so that everybody has their piece in the puzzle, so to speak. We map out their 4 pillars of income, because we all know don't put your eggs in one basket. And so we want them to focus on 4 different areas of business, and it's specific to them. It's what does that agent enjoy doing, because there's 100 different ways to get business out there. And we spend several weeks. I mean, the agents take this on their own. They map it out. We come back together as a team. We talk about it. They go back. They edit it. They come to me and they say, sometimes we work it backwards. They say to me, I want to make $150,000 this year. Well, then, okay, we can take our team's average sale price and we can see, what their commission would be, come up with the number of closings a year. So if that's 45 units a year that one agent needs to close, then we're going to take those 4 pillars and we're going to say, okay, great. How are we going to get there? And then we just map it out from there.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a minute. And if I were an attendee listening, I would say, this is a bunch of baloney. There's no way that doing business planning like this could really fundamentally change your business. So defend that for me, because I know you guys totally believe in it does make a difference, but it almost sounds like it's a bunch of hooey.
Our biggest thing is what we've learned from Burl Workman was you can't inspect, or you have to inspect what you expect. And so we can talk all day long about all of these things that we want to do. However, once we actually write them down and they're right there in your face, and our team creates vision boards. I mean, right now sitting on my desk, I have my vision board of all my goals, personal and professional. And once it's on paper and then you build that plan, it really holds you accountable. I think accountability is huge in getting there.
And so how often are you talking about these business plans as you march forward in the years?
So we're constantly talking about them. Our team meets every single morning. Every morning we're talking about, small daily stuff, of course, with our daily huddles. what the team's working on, what pillar they're focusing on. Every week we talk about it in our office meetings. We cover where we were the last week, where we're going. Every quarter I sit down with each agent and I do their quarterly review. And at that point is when I really dive in and we say, okay, you closed, your goal was 20 units this quarter. We hit 18. What did we do that worked? What wasn't working? What can we do to focus next quarter so that, we not only hit your next quarter's goal, but we make up those 2 that you were behind. I mean, it's huge that we talk about it constantly in here.
And it's amazing because I think ultimately what sounds like it might be complicating the business actually makes the business more simple for you and Christy to manage, because you're just picking themes and you're covering the same themes, if you will, over and over all year long.
Absolutely.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah,
Tim,
yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Tim, let me get you back in here. So does Homes.com start out the year without a business plan? I mean, do you just go to the big bosses and say, hey, we're just going to sell as much as we can? Don't worry about it. We'll get you as much as we can. Or do you have to do some significant business planning for, what your plans are, your goals are, so you can have some accountability? How does it work?
Oh, yeah, man. We definitely have a business plan in place, our monthly goals, our yearly goals, quarterly goals. Everything's been established from the year before. Some of the things that we want to achieve as a sales floor, obviously as a business, things that we want to be able to grow in. But yeah, we definitely enter every year with a new business plan, or business plan, and we put our goals in front of us, all the way down from upper management, all the way down to the sales floor, to service side. There's a company-wide vision that our president Dave Mealy, he shares with us every year in terms of our goals.
And you've been doing this for quite some time and are, in my opinion, very successful at what you do. Does it actually help you to have a plan and have goals that you're supposed to be striving for?
Yeah, I mean, all the way down to the sales rep level, where I talk with my team, I speak with my team, I break it down to what their why is, what their vision is, what their goals are. I love what Samantha talked about, the vision board. I put that in front of my sales reps all the time. I put that in front of myself all the time. I think there's got to be a great level of accountability, especially when you want to have a successful, proven track of business in anything. You want to have that accountability structure in your life, and goals are definitely, they're one of the priorities.
I love it. I absolutely, totally love it. Hey, let's shift back, Samantha. I think to say that you and Christy are into scripting everything, I think is a total understatement. Meaning like you guys script everything, every situation, every scenario. You're working on your words, you're writing them down. So talk about some of the common scripts you use, and also how important scripting is to you and your team.
So scripting is huge, and I actually have a little story. Actually, we were scripting this morning with the whole team, even our agents that have been in the business 16, 17, 18 years. But, we started out when our agents hire on with the team, really any team member, we start out with the basics. We go through BAM, which is Workman program, and we start out with what's LP Mama. And, the LP Mama script, it starts very basic. We talk about their location, price, motivation, agency, mortgage, and appointment. And then we start focusing on areas, that we can generate a little bit better business. Once our team members kind of have that down, we go to our top 50, which is our top 50 sphere we think are going to give us referrals through the year. And then we teach, our listing partner, how do you script for a listing? How do you talk about if somebody wants to reduce commission because they're buying and selling with us? We script every possible scenario you can even imagine. And we do it right there on screen. You'll see our team's photo. I mean, everybody's right there in front of each other. We figure if you can sit there and script with 18 people, then when you get out in the field with that one client, it's not near as bad and intimidating.
What do you say to all I'm sorry to interrupt, Samantha. What do you say to all the people who say, scripting makes it sound phony and canned, and, we just don't want to do scripts because we don't want people to think it's all rehearsed? What do you say to that?
We felt that same way at first 5 years ago when we started scripting. And actually, it would start out, Christy would look at me, and when I had a question, and she would tell me, how would you answer this if I wasn't here? And so it really forces you to think. I think the more you script, obviously you start out basic, but the more comfortable you're with it, you're just going to take it and roll with it. And it doesn't sound scripted. I think instead it makes you sound very educated, that you have a lot of confidence. And we're able to get younger team members in here, in their early 20s as agents and get them trained right, and they go out there and it doesn't even hinder them for a second.
I love that. And I love it that you believe there is power in the words, because there certainly is power in the words. When someone starts with your team, I know you work them through a very specific process, and we'll talk a little bit about onboarding on our last slide. But you do something that I think is just genius, and that you make your new agents shadow your current agents to get them up to speed on being able to work with clients on their own. Talk to us about that process. I just love it, because you're making sure your team is in a position to deliver a good quality service to the consumer. It makes perfectly good sense to me.
We do. So before anybody on our team are allowed to go out, before they can even take their first lead day on the team, as we call it, they have to go out and they have to shadow at least 40 hours within that first 30 days. We say at least because we want more, but we want them in the car with our seasoned agents. We want them listening to phone calls. We want them walking through exactly how that agent shows, what the agent's pointing out, the conversations they're having. And then we take it a step further, and once they've kind of shadowed with our seasoned agents, Christy herself goes out in the field, because that's her, her strong point, what she loves. And then she'll walk them through the house how she would show it, flips it around, has that agent show her pretending to be the client. And I really think it just gives them, one, that confidence. It shows them what's important to a buyer's eye. They've got to get to know the field. They've got to get to know the area. And we make them, they also shadow on everything. I mean, writing contracts. They have to shadow our pending department on how we work a file from contract to close. We want them side by side with somebody, essentially 24/7 that first 30 days. And it could take up to 6 months before we even allow them to get out there and take their first client. It's just all dependent on, how much shadowing, how much mentoring, and everything they put in there.
Which is kind of amazing, because in most cases where people are trying to build a team, the team leader just feels lucky to have hired somebody, and now they've got the person that they don't think about, we've got to make sure that they give a good quality, good level of service, that they perform up to our specifications. And it's almost like a person has to earn the right to be a team member on your team. And boy, that sure seems a lot healthier for the team than sort of begging people to join the team and being glad for whoever you have.
It is. When we first started hiring, we did exactly that. We were convincing people, to get on the team, to join us. And it was like we were trying to bribe them. Well, then we looked at it and thought, we're so known in the industry. There's not enough, training out there for the sales side. So let's flip it around, and they need to show that they put in the work and that they know how to get out there and help our clients, because our clients are our most important thing.
And my guess is when you set the standard that they have to earn the right to be a team member, and I know your average buyer's agent's probably making over $100,000 for sure. Some of them a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
They have to sort of earn the right to be there, and I think that levels the playing field almost perfectly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a new agent on your team has to be involved in somewhere between like 10 and 15 transactions before you totally trust them to do transactions on their own. Forgive me if you said that, but is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They have to, they have a mentor, one of our seasoned agents. Once they get through that whole process of shadowing, then their next 10 to 15 transactions, the seasoned agent steps in, mentors them again, side by side, and that agent gets a little bit of a split off of it to help them. But, until they do that, until we've proved every contract that's gone out up to 15, then we'll let them go out on their own.
I love it. And then how often are you having, do you have a weekly meeting, and then do you also have other meetings or huddles during the week? How does that work on your team?
We do. Every single day, Monday through Friday, we huddle at 9 a.m. And it's just a quick 15, 20-minute huddle. And when we first started in the business, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, what on earth am I huddling about?
Right.
When we started, it was very basic. We started out with, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? And that's kind of where we stopped it at first. And then we, now we have definitely a system in place. And then we have our weekly meetings every single Wednesday for 2 hours. And then we do a training meeting every Thursday for an hour. And
it's funny, you almost have to open yourself up and be exposed to have people say, well, what'd you do yesterday? Nothing. what are you doing today? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that unfortunately is kind of how it starts in the first place, but over time it changes, right?
It does. Yes, it does. At first they come in there, they're clueless and uncomfortable, and then it's exciting. They want to come in and they want to say, oh, I did prospect for an hour yesterday and I made 20 calls and I set 3 buyer appointments. And I think it's just really good motivation to have the whole team hear that. And it encourages, if somebody's having a rough day, the whole team steps in, we talk them through it, we get them back on track and just keep them going.
It's really the true definition of a team. I know you spent some time early on creating core values, and I think you created core values with an acronym, outstanding. Are core values really important? What was the process you went through to come up with yours, and have they helped?
Our core values are huge. I think with any company, we look at it as, you can have people that are great salespeople all day long, but if they don't all have the same core values in mind, then we're not going to mesh. We're not going to be able to grow together. And we've learned that through trial and error. So we all sat down as a team and we said, okay, let's come up with our core values. We're going to hire by these core values. We're going to address issues by these. We're actually going to release team members by these. And Christy would always say that the team was outstanding. Anytime somebody asked a question, it was, oh, the team's doing outstanding. And so we said, okay, well, let's make that the acronym. And then we all sat down literally as a group one day, and it probably took several hours, and we just knocked it out. And we went down and said, okay, what do we want to be? What do we want to represent? And you'll see them on the screen right here. And every single morning in our huddle, we not only talk about, we recite them as a team, but then we'll ask. I'll point out and say, hey, Melissa, what are you doing today to be a person of action? Or on the flip side, what didn't you do yesterday, to be grounded? And how can we be better today to pull you back up and make sure you stay there?
So it's almost like you use these as the barometer that they measure themselves against, meaning this is what we're supposed to do. We know we're human, so we're not going to always live that way, but you continue to judge them based on that every day, which is kind of giving the business a little bit of a life of its own. I know you're very particular in how you onboard agents. Talk to us just a little bit about onboarding agents, and then you've already talked about how someone really has to be trained before they get into the lead rotation, so I don't know that we need to discuss that anymore.
Yeah, so whenever our agents start, we have, as you can see on the screen, our admin team, the back end, has a whole onboarding process, and it covers just the basics, everything we need to do to get them going. And then the agent is actually a 5-page document, and it's everything that they need to know, before they can start taking leads again, or really anything on the team. And it breaks it down. What we do is we want to teach the team to do what they're good at and give the administrative tasks to the admin team. And again, like I said, it could take 60 days to 6 months before that agent even gets on lead rotation, because we want to make sure they're in here trained. We want to make sure they know every single program within our company and understand, the value of everything.
And Samantha, you're basically, and sorry for interrupting, you're basically just checking off, here's the things we're going to do. We're going from A to Z, and you're just walking through that process. Some agents might do it a little faster. Some agents might do it a little more slowly, but you're making sure they all go through the same process. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And we tell them, here's your My Perfect Week. Here's your onboarding. It could take you 30 days. It could take you 6 months. It's all dependent on that agent. We don't put everybody in one little hat and say you all have to do it in X amount of time frame.
I love it. I love it. So to summarize, and the title of today's webinar was 8 Simple Steps to 10 Times the Business. Thank you very much, Tim Rabara, for being on with us and for providing some great insight. And also, I'm really excited about the new products that you have that you've come up with. I do have a quick question, Samantha. Judith wants to know, how do your agents survive for 6 months without a commission? And so I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding. They have the opportunity to earn money as they go through the process. Talk about that just a little bit.
They do. So typically when we hire on somebody, we do prepare them up front, how our team works, our expectations. It could be a while, but in between there, they're able to go. They can hold open houses if they want to. We'll show them how to do that. They can work those leads. It's just we don't put them on our actual lead flow as far as giving them our lead phone, putting them into, all of our lead sources that we actually use. But we show them how to work their top 50, how to work their own database. as well. So they do have some transactions. We just don't put them in our full-blown lead flow.
Got it. Understood. So they're making some money. They're probably making a lot more money while they're training with you than they would actually make if they were on their own. So I summarized the 8 simple steps to 10 times the business is number 1, hire an assistant. And Samantha, you and Joel both would agree that that is certainly the first step. Number 2, make the mental shift. You got to think differently in order to grow a team, to grow a big business. You think very differently. In other words, you think as if you are already doing, a couple $1 million in gross commission income. So you start acting like you're a $2 million producer, even when you maybe are only a 200 or 250,000. You create the right infrastructure, like happened in both the Christy Buck Team, Samantha's case, and also Joel's case as well. You create a unique proposition. What are you? Who are you that's different? Both of them train, and I love the process of shadowing. They plan for success. They systematize the onboarding process, and they create core values as well. So those are Cleve's 8 simple steps to 10 times the business. And I think if you're listening and you repeat those steps, I think you would wind up seeing some good success. It seems like we've been able to get all of the questions answered during today's webinar. I'm actually, in addition to being a full-time real estate team leader and broker, I'm also a coach with Workman Success Systems. Some of the tools we're giving away today are Workman Success Systems tools. They're free, no obligation. You can take them and apply them in your business right away. Workman Success Systems actually specializes in working with some of the biggest teams in the country, but we actually help people go from a point of where they just are a small team or they just want to grow a team and to be able to grow a very, very large team. So we can take people all the way through the process. If you're interested, you can reach out to us. Our coaching is not right for everybody, but for those who it is right for, they really seem to get good results very quickly. Your free gifts that you'll be able to get if you go to workmansuccess.com/simple steps, you'll be able to download the LP Mama and a Ford script. You heard Samantha talking about the LP Mama. You'll be able to download daily huddle agenda outline that you heard Samantha talk about, a business plan workbook that you saw us have on the screen, ABCs of lead management, which is exactly how people who are coached by Workman Success Systems categorize and manage leads to get the best out of them. And also you'll see an onboarding process for a buyer's agent's first 30 days. Joel, thank you very much for being on and being a panelist. Great information. Samantha, same to you. Tim Rabara, same as well. I appreciate everybody listening in and being an attendee today. And I bet you RISmedia will be back next month with a couple of more RISMedia Webinar Series. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us today.